Okay, so in this part we are going to make some textures for our engine, and of course we have to export it, and I will export it as an OBJ file. With the name engine low poly. And let's switch to Photoshop and run QXL Suite and Dido, and we have to load mesh, of course, from our project file. Let's type engine LP. Let's add our IDs, normal map, and of course ambient occlusion map. And I will check back in 3Do our curvature map. Uncheck, of course, flip Y for the normal, and let's set resolution to 2K, and let's hit create project. Later I will also add a bump map to our project. Okay, so we can turn on 3Do. And let's resize this window. And of course I will change a post-process to the Unreal Engine 4 preset. I will just really quickly check the model if everything is okay with the normal maps and ambient occlusion maps, and we will be able to start. So here you can see references that I will be using for the texturing, and of course I've put them on the second display. And we will start from a simple metal material. And of course we should change the scale of the material. I wanted this steel to be a little bit brighter, and of course I've changed the roughness a little bit. So I wanted to try just a different material, so I've picked this steel dirty material, and I think it is better for the beginning because this steel base material don't have all these surface details like some dust and scratches. So I will delete this base steel, and we will use this steel dirty version. And you can see I've applied an asphalt material, and sometimes I'm doing this because I want to use only a normal map from this material. So you can see I will set opacity for the roughness, for the albedo to 0, and I am leaving only a normal map to 100% opacity. And of course I've changed the texture intensity, so it's very subtle effect. And here I've duplicated this still dirty layer because I want to add some color variation to this metal, and I've turned on a Dynamask editor and we will load a texture. We can hit show mask, so we will be able to see how our mask is looking, and we will play a little bit with this post-process options, with the contrast, tightness, brightness. So we will have some spot of the metal a little darker. And I've decided to change this texture to something else. So it's okay, but of course I don't want this effect to be very hard in some places, so I can really quickly grab a brush tool and just paint a mask. So I will delete these darker spots from certain areas. And I will hit accept mask, and that's it. And of course I will assign this group to a ID mask, so we will have this material only on this part that we've selected. If you will hit C on your keyboard while being in 3Do, you are able to see your ID groups. And I've duplicated this duty steel again because I want to add some darker edges, and I've been playing a little bit with these mask presets in Dynamask editor. It will not be very strong effect, so I'm not really concerned about this. So you can hit 1, 2, 3 and so on your keyboard to switch between channels, and 1 is for albedo, 2 of course is for the roughness, and so on. So very often I'm switching between 1 and 2 to see how my albedo and roughness looks. Right now I will add just sand material, and of course for the albedo I am turning down a little bit texture intensity, and of course scale of the sand. And of course I am turning on Dynamask editor, and I will pick one of the presets and of course using a brush we will delete some of the areas. So it's not bad, but we have to fix manually a few things, especially on the corners. And of course before painting you should always check this performance tab and see if you have undo check on, because if you don't have this option on you will not be able to use Ctrl Z, which sometimes is pretty uncomfortable. So I wanted the sun to be a little bit more visible, and I was playing a little bit with the curvature options, and it's definitely stronger right now, but we will have to delay it, of course, from the unwanted places. So you can see I've spent a little bit of time just by editing this sand. And you should remember that after painting your mask, it's good to fix your seams. Of course you can turn auto fixing, but I have this option off always because I like to do this manually. Okay, so I think we are pretty much done with the sand for this part. Let's hit accept mask and let's save our project. Okay, right now I will choose standard rubber synthetic material. And I am clicking C to display my IDs and left mouse button and click on the color that you want, and this way you are able to assign this material to the color ID. And I will duplicate this rubber synthetic material. The new one I will make a little bit brighter, and I will switch to Dynamask editor. I will select a black material and just painting with a dirty brush. I will remove some of the material on the center of this stripe. So you can see you can play a little bit with the color of your brush, so the effect is stronger or lighter. And I am just putting the sand above our rubber, so this will also affect, the sand will also affect the rubber synthetic material. And you should remember that you should always assign the IDs mask to your group, also not only to the materials that are inside. but also to the group, because sometimes it's giving me some small bugs. But if I will select correct ID to the group, it's working okay. And right now I will just remove a little bit of the sand. Okay, so we can add some details to this rubber synthetic material. So I've duplicated the first one, and I will assign a texture. The bad thing about this is that we can't rotate these presets, these masks, texture masks. So of course right now this one is in wrong direction. I would like to rotate it by 90 degrees, but unfortunately we can't do this. I was trying to rotate the material, but it doesn't affect the mask. So we have something like this, just to show you that we can achieve something like this, but really later I will do this kind of lines manually in a different direction. And you can see I've added a bump map texture to our project, and we can play a little bit with the bump effect. So the next one I will choose a cotton material. Of course, let's select correct ID for the group. And of course we have to play a little bit with this, change the scale and maybe texture intensity for the albedo. And of course color for the albedo. Right now I think that green will be okay. And I've selected this material to texture these rubber pipes or plastic pipes. I really wasn't sure what the material I want to use, but I've choose just this polypropylene material, and of course I will tweak this material a little bit. You can see I'm switching between albedo channel and roughness channel, just to be sure what values I have. And of course would be great to remove a little bit of sand from these rubber pipes. Okay, so I think this is enough. And I will accept the mask. Okay, so next we will create material for the fuel injectors. And right now I am looking for the correct material that will fit our need the best. So I've choose this green dirty material, metal material, and of course assign this to the correct ID. And right now we can play a little bit with this. Let's change of course the scale. We can delete mood from this material because we don't need this. And it looks pretty okay, but of course we will do some manual changes. I would like to make some distractions on the edges. So I've picked this paint, and let's switch to Dynamask editor and we will paint some scratches. So I know it's a little bit boring watching me doing all these scratches around the model, but I will not be skipping this because it will be just too much skipping. Okay, so I will accept these changes, accept the mask, and I will just put my material below the sand. So again we will have to adjust our sand mask, and of course remove a little bit of the sand. Okay, so you can see I've just turned off our sand, and right now I'm looking for the oil material. I would like to add some oil in some places. I am switching to Dynamask editor, choosing a black preset, so we have no oil material at all, and right now I will be painting some areas with this oil. Of course, when we are done, I will have to switch back to the sand material and again remove a little bit of sand in these places where our oil is. Okay, so I've skipped a little bit this oil painting, and I am switching this oil material below our sand, and let's delete this sand from these places where the oil is, because right now the sand is covering almost completely this oil and there is no effect. And I've created another steel material, this time steel scratched, and I've just assigned it to these screws of the fuel injectors. So you can see having ID masks for even this kind of smaller details allow us to really quickly assign materials. Right now I am just creating a smart material, smart metal material, and I wanted to add this to this part that you see, and also I wanted this black metal material on this front little elements, but I didn't have ID mask there, so I will have to paint them manually, which is a little bit uncomfortable. But sometimes we have to do this. So switching to the albedo channel allows me to see everything a little bit better. Of course, putting material this way, we are not very precise, but these elements are very small and nobody will notice that. You can see I've made some changes. We have previously this paint material here, and I've changed it to the galvanized steel. So we had this fuel injector green, and right now it's more like a metal or steel or something like this. I've also changed the cotton to brown color, so it's looking a little bit moody. And I've also, for this steel material that we are in right now, I've changed the albedo to a little bit darker colors, so everything is, I think, more balanced, and everything of course is a little bit darker because we've got a really bright scene in Unreal Engine. So this is a desert, so of course it's very bright, and we have to keep this in mind that we don't want really too shiny materials because they will look overblown. And right now for this material I am adding a little bit of rust, and I will be doing this manually, just picking a brush and putting this rust in some places. I was testing few presets in Dynamask Editor, but I've decided to do it by the hand because I don't want too much of this rust. Just a little bit on the top and somewhere on the corners. Okay, so we can switch to the leakage brushes, and for the rust it's pretty okay to use something like this. And you can see, using for example this brush, we can create some cool effects. and of course on the other side. And let's maybe switch to another one. Which is also pretty good for this kind of smaller leaking rust. Okay, so for something like rust we can use a bump, and right now I am switching to the bump tab, and you can see changing the value. We can create this kind of bump effect, which for the rust is pretty cool. You should remember that in Unreal Engine our textures will be a little bit compressed, so everything will be a little bit less visible. So it's good sometimes to do this effect like a bump a little bit stronger here, where we have our textures uncompressed. So right now we will be starting this air scope, and for this one I've choose a steel scratched material and assign to the correct IDs. Of course I can see that we will have to make some changes to the sand material, but before we will do this we will try to make some changes to the default steel that we've selected. Of course I've duplicated the first material, make it a little bit darker, and we will play a little bit in Dynamask editor. I think this texture will work, but we have to make it more visible. So to do this, of course, we have to play a little bit with the contrast and the brightness. So right now we have a few scratches. Of course it's good to change the roughness. and albedo to a little bit darker color. So for the base, for the start, it's not bad. And I wanted to make both the materials a little bit darker, because like I said previously, we have a very bright scene, so if you will put something that shiny on the desert, it will be a little bit too shiny. I wanted to see what kind of results we will get with the bump, but it's killing our surface, so we will not use a bump for this material. And you can see I've created just a empty layer. I am turning opacity for all these layers, like a normal, metalness, bump. For the roughness I will have opacity set to 100, and for albedo right now 100. And we will play a little bit with these options later, but right now I want to create a mask for this front of the air scope. You can see I've switched to the orthographic view just by pressing P on my keyboard. And I will choose a different brush from the brush tip shape tab, because I want to create this kind of scratches. And I was thinking I will be able to paint through all this geometry just by playing with this option, but unfortunately it's not working the way I was thinking. So I had to paint all these 4 pipes manually. So we can accept the mask and play a little bit with the options for this material. So I want this front part a little bit darker and with less reflections, so it looks more dirty and scratched. You can see using this leakage brush I've created some scratches on the corners, on the edges of the scope. Of course I am skipping a little bit of this process because it was long and boring, but I'm just showing you how it was done. So I wanted to add some more distractions, a little bit more noise, and I wanted also to make these edge scratches less visible because right now they are really heavy and I think they are just too visible. So just with the noise brush I'm trying to fix this a little bit. And here on the sides of this air scope I wanted some scratches. Of course less visible than right now. I will make some smaller and softer scratches. You can see right now we have our sand off, so we will have to bring it on and fix a little bit, of course. For the air scope I will also add probably some rust, but for now I will just take care about this sand. As you can see, not much to discuss. I'm just putting the sand in the places that the sand will definitely collect. And I'm trying to make this as much realistic as I can. And of course you can see we've got some glitches here on the bottom, so it's good to fix this. So the sand is almost done. I will just make a few this kind of sand scratches or something like this. Just a little bit directional sand. And like I said, I will probably add some rust. It will not be anything fancy. And while the texturing, it's good to from time to time send your model to Unreal, to your scene, and see how everything looks, because even with the correct post-process for the Unreal, in your scene you can have a different lighting environment and some of the details can look different. Might be too less visible or too much. So it's good to send your model from time to time to the Unreal to just check how everything is behaving. Okay, so that's it. We will do one more thing. And I want to add a little logo on the front of this engine. You can see I've added a little bit of rust to the scope. It's nothing special, so I will skip the process of doing this. But right now I've just duplicated the first steel layer and I will just switch to 3Do. And you can see I've imported a brush, an alpha actually, for my brush, and this is the logo. We have to flip a Y, and right now we can add this. It's just a blast word. I'm switching right now to the orthographic view, and we can project this here. So nothing is visible, but we have our mask, so I am accepting the changes. And right now I am switching to the bump tab, and we will be switching the values for the bump. But to see some changes we have to move our layer a little bit up, because everything is covering our effect. I mean, the other layers are covering our effect. So I will change albedo a little bit to make it darker. And I would like to also add a sign, but unfortunately we don't have anything very good, so I will use this sign and I will remove some parts of it, and I think this will be enough. So something like this, and I will take our rubber and remove the unwanted areas. Yeah, and that's it. Smaller details like this make model more interesting, more realistic. So I think we are done with this one. Thank you for watching this part and see you in next.